Mr. Houck's attention. I see him here, but he can't hear us. Maybe he stepped away. I will write him a chat note.
The YouTube video has started.
Thank you, Kathy. So in a couple of minutes, Kathy, we should be able to go to the screen share. We don't have many people here yet. Then again, we don't have to have a quorum today. Yes, and I did see that Ms. Moorman is not coming. She. Mr. Pigram, can you hear us? Jeff Pigram, I see that you've joined. Can you hear us? We're not hearing anything from you at the moment. Looks like you don't have a microphone. Okay. Oh, you do have a microphone, but you're muted. I know. Jeff Pigram has a microphone showing when he tries to connect to it.
It said that he was connecting to audio, but is it
right?
Jeff, can you unmute yourself? And
I think he's signaling that he's trying, but it's not working. Huh?
Yeah, I tried to. I'm asking to unmute him. But... Okay, try it now.
Can you say something for us, Jeff? We think your microphone's unmuted. Jeff, can you say something and see if we can hear you? You're talking. We don't.
Yeah, he's probably not connected to audio. Like,
apparently.
Maybe try to go ahead on the mute button at the bottom left. That little button arrow that's pointing up, and then go to like audio settings or select a speaker, and make sure your audio is connected to either headphone or speaker. Down at the bottom, the mute button, there's a little arrow that is pointing up, and you can click on that, and then it pulls up a box of different audio settings.
If that doesn't work, Jeff, you can also join with the phone and the video screen.
Yeah, he can always do that as well.
Oh, I see one of our new members, Mr. Longbill, has joined us. Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. Vice Chairman Campbell, I see you've joined us.
Good morning to everyone. Nice.
Good morning. Nice, crisp morning, yes. And Russ, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. And we can hear you well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stevens, see you've joined us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Ms. Henson from FDOT, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is 9:30. And so, Madam Chairman, it is 9:30, I believe, or am I a minute or two ahead? Am I a minute ahead here?
Good morning.
I am 2 minutes ahead. Good morning, Mr. Peters.
I went ahead and put the number in the chat box. If you're having trouble connecting to audio, you can do it by phone. And I put the number there with the webinar ID and the passcode.
Thank you, Leilani.
This is Jeff. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can now. Yay. Very good. We can hear you. We can see you. Welcome. Ms. Mott, I see you've joined us. Welcome.
Good morning. Great to see everybody. How are you this morning?
I am well. Good to see you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chairwoman, it is now 9:30 and we are recording the meeting and streaming live on YouTube. So you may begin whenever you like.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to this virtual MetroPlan.
Okay, we seem to have lost the chairwoman.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. We lost you for a minute. Let's try that again.
Sounds good. So welcome to this virtual MetroPlan Orlando CAC meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Sarah Badri and I'll be chairing this meeting today. We have a team of wonderful folks, as always, working to ensure this meeting runs smoothly. Today's meeting was advertised on the MetroPlan Orlando website and social media, as well as through targeted emails. Florida's Sunshine Law requires a quorum to be physically present in a room for a government meeting. However, Governor DeSantis suspended this requirement in an executive order, allowing government boards to conduct business using virtual meetings. However, this order expired October 31st, so this meeting is being held in a workshop mode. Staff will further explain what this means in just a moment. It's now time for our Pledge of Allegiance. Today, I'll ask our Vice Chair, Mr. Jeffrey Campbell, to lead us in the pledge. Everyone, please remain on mute.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So at today's meeting, we'll keep microphones muted unless you've been recognized to speak, and we'll use the raise hands feature to participate in discussion. There are 2 public comment points during this meeting. Members of the public who want to speak will use the raise hands feature found in the participants tab. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. Once you're called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff, and we'll ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. We'll also accept comments by email and phone message before our MetroPlan meetings, and the guidelines for public comments are posted on the metroplanorlando.org/virtual meetings website. Public comments received before the meeting will be read by staff at the conclusion of the meeting. We want this and all future online meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodations to participate in the future, please contact MetroPlan Orlando. All right, so I just have a couple comments before we start the meeting. Mary Ann will be recognizing a few of our new members, but I want to take a moment to congratulate one of our outgoing members, Carolyn Campbell. She had a really successful campaign for soil and water the board for District 2. She'll actually be succeeding Daisy Morales, who is now going to be representing us at the Florida State House. I am really looking forward to what Soil and Water does. This board is really diverse, and I know Carolyn's leadership will be well valued there. We're going to be missing her here, but I just want to say congratulations, Carolyn. At this time, I'm going to recognize, yes, virtual claps. At this time, I want to recognize Mary Ann Horn of MetroPlan Orlando staff for our agenda review.
Good morning, Chairwoman El-Badri, committee members, and everyone who is joining us online. Thank you, as always, for working with us as we conduct these virtual meetings. We appreciate your patience and your understanding. Based on direction from the MetroPlan Orlando board at the September meeting, this meeting, as the chairwoman mentioned, will be held as a virtual workshop in which action items will be reviewed and discussed, but no formal action will be taken, so that a quorum is not required to conform with sunshine. The board's action on the items that you discussed today will then be ratified at a future in-person CAC meeting. We don't know when that will be yet. We're playing it by ear, one day at a time here, but that is the plan, that at some point you will eventually ratify all of these decisions as you would have under other circumstances. So again, thank you for your flexibility. Also, as the chairwoman mentioned, we will be using the raise hands feature to recognize committee members during the meeting and to call on members of the public during the comment time. If you have joined us on the phone only without the video screen, please use *6 to mute and unmute your line. Please use *9 to raise your virtual hand so that the meeting host can see you and know that you want to be recognized. You will see that there's a chat feature on your toolbar. This communicates with all panelists in the meeting, which includes committee members, staff, and presenters. Please only use this if you are having a technical issue or need some kind of assistance or to get a message to the rest of the panel. A full record of this chat comment will be included with the public record of the meeting. I do have, as the chairwoman mentioned, the pleasure of announcing 2 new members of the CAC today, one of whom I believe is with us and the other I believe is not with us today. Mr. Joel Davis is a St. Cloud appointee. I do not see him in the room yet. Mr. Davis was previously on the CAC. We also have Kyle Longville, who is here. Mr. Longville is an appointee from Seminole County, and he's eager to start on public service volunteering and chose the CAC as a place to do that. I am sure that both of these members will contribute a great deal and become engaged with our work, and I'm happy to welcome them aboard. As I mentioned at our last meeting, we are continuing to recruit applicants for several MetroPlan Orlando appointee seats. The board approved our revised bylaws in November. A copy is in your packets today. We have received some applications. We will continue to receive them for a few more weeks. We are working on assembling our screening committee per the new bylaws. I hope to give you a more substantive update on this process at our January meeting once everything has settled a little bit more. Madam Chairwoman, that completes my announcements this morning. There are no changes to the agenda. And now I think we'd like to take attendance. And again, a quorum is not required today, but we would still like to take attendance. I will ask Ms. Kathy Goldfarb to call the roll, please. Kathy?
I'll ask all committee members to please go ahead and unmute yourselves now for the roll call. And you can go on the mute again after your name is called. Please make sure your video is on, if possible, so we can confirm it's you. You'll find the unmute and video buttons on the bottom left side of your toolbar on the bottom of the screen. Please say here or present when your name is called. Jeffrey Campbell.
Here.
Carolyn Campbell. Edmund Sid. Melissa Council. Joel Davis. Greg Eisenberg, Sarah L. Badri,
Present.
Russ Hauk,
Here.
Douglas Henley, Cynthia Henry, TJ Legacy Cole, Brady Lassard, Hector Lizaswain, Kyle Longville,
Here.
Teresa Mott,
Present.
RJ Mueller,
Here.
Tom O'Hanlon, Brinley Peters,
Present. Here. Didn't unmute.
Jeff Pigram,
Present.
Marissa Salas, Casmore Shaw, Dan Stevens,
Here.
Adam Valencic, Theo Webster,
Here.
Denise White,
Good morning. Present.
Scott Zubarak,
Here.
that concludes the roll call.
All right, so we will now move on to public comments on what we normally call action items, but in this format, our items are for review or discussion. Do we have any people who want to speak on these items? If so, please use the raise hands function found at the bottom of your screen or by pressing *9 on your phone keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your microphone. You will see a button pop up that says the host wants to unmute you. Please accept that prompt. We ask that you provide your name, address for the record. Please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time? Mary Ann?
Madam Chairwoman, I do not see any hands raised on the public side at this time. So I think
Did we have any written comments that were submitted?
we did not receive any written comments.
All right, so we are going to be moving on to our items for review and discussion. This should be a relatively short meeting, but please feel free for questions and discussion during this period. We're going to start off with, of course, our review of our meeting minutes from last October 28th. Hopefully you've had some time to review these in your packet. Are there any corrections or revisions that need to be brought to attention? All right, I don't know if I see any hands raised. Does anybody have any comments? All right, so again, because we are in workshop mode, these items are going to be brought back for formal approval at a future in-person meeting. So we're going to move on to item number 2, which is review of the FDOT amendment to fiscal year 2020-2021 through 2024-2025 TIP. This is going to be found in tab 2 of your agenda. And Mr. Keith Caskey from MetroPlan Orlando will present the information. Please hold your questions until the presentation is completed. Mr. Caskey?
Okay, good morning. This amendment that we have this month includes 4 projects. There's a new pedestrian lighting project in Orange County, and then there's additional funding for a traffic signal project at US 441 and State Road 50. And then Lynx has funds rolling forward from 2020 to 2021 for their capital grant for purchasing buses. And then there's also a new advanced traffic operations project in downtown Orlando. And as the chairwoman mentioned, you all have their information in tab 2. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
All right, Keith, I'm not seeing any hands raised. I don't have any comments myself, but I will invite one more chance for discussion. If you want to unmute yourselves, folks. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to our next item. Thank you, Mr. Caskey. To item number 3, which is a review of the proposed 2045 MTP cost feasible plan. Mr. Alex Traeger and Ms. Cynthia Lambert will be presenting this information. We'll hold questions until the end. Go ahead, folks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It's good to see everybody today. So as Sarah mentioned, this is going to be a tag team presentation between Alex and me. And so for about the past 2 years, we have been developing our 2045 plan, and it's finally time to bring it in for a landing. So this is our last presentation on the 2045 plan to you. You'll find the information in tab 3. There's a few items in there. One is a board action fact sheet. We usually do for our board members just kind of a 1-pager overview of what the action item is all about. There's also the adopting resolution. So the board next week at their December 9th meeting will be adopting the 2045 plan through a resolution. So the text of that language is in the packet for you to see. And then you also have the full record of public comments that we received on the draft plan. And I am going to be going over some of those today, but I hope that you had the chance to go through and read every word for members of the public that we had submitted. So you'll find all that at tab 3 in your packets. So as you know, a lot of technical work and public participation has gone into this process. Last month at your meeting, you received an in-depth overview from Alex on the technical side of the plan and all the different project categories. So you've had about a month to chew on it now. So today, we're really just going to go over changes and updates to the plan and the final part of our public participation, and then give you a chance to ask questions. We want to make sure all your questions are answered on various aspects of the plan. So to get right into it, right after your last meeting, we had our webinar called 2045 Plan, The Reveal. This was our public meeting for our draft 2045 plan. We had great attendance here. We had about 100 attendees at the live event. And since that time, we're way over 200 views on the webinar recording on our YouTube channel. So it's great that many people are really taking the time to watch and to learn more about transportation planning and about what's coming in the future. So we had about 42% of the folks that were actually at the live event were return participants, meaning that they've had some involvement with us earlier in the process and are sticking with us to see what the final product looks like. So we're really happy to see that. One of the polling questions that we asked, I wanted to share with you all, thought you might find this interesting. So as you all heard last month, while the plan invests, $25 billion over the course of the next 25 years, we still have quite a large sum of unfunded needs. So we asked attendees, if money fell out of the sky tomorrow for this plan, if all of a sudden, new funds became available, how would you want to spend it? And so folks had quite a variety of opinions, but the most popular opinion here was they'd like to see more bus and rail. We've shared with you that this is one of the themes that we've heard from the public all along, the desire to see more transit service in the area. Folks are also very interested in smart signals and technology, followed by safety projects, and then bicycle facilities. So next slide, please. So we received a lot of really wonderful public comments on our draft 2045 plan. We had the comment period open for a little bit over a month. So it went from October 16th through November 20th. And we had created a virtual landing page on our site where people can take a tour of what exactly is in the plan and find all the plan documents. And so we received 39 comments on the plan. And you can see here the chart shows you the most popular topics that we received. For the most part, the majority of the comments that we received were from individuals in the community. We did also receive some letters from 5 different groups. So they were either advocacy groups or different agencies that submitted letters on topics of interest to their particular group. And I will touch on some of those in just a moment. But again, you can find the full record in tab 3 of your documents. So next slide, please. So we took all the public comments that we received and we put it into a word cloud generator, and it produced this really neat graphic. And so you can easily pick out what is really important to people here. And I'll go into some of those more popular topics that we received. But as you can see, the major one here that pops out is transit. And so people are very concerned about wanting to see more transit service. As you know, this was our biggest unfunded need, meaning that, you know, we still need to invest quite a bit in transit to get the system to where the region really envisions that it wants to be in the future. And so we saw a lot of comments come in about the need for more service, you know, more routes, first, last mile connections, more premium transit, meaning things like bus rapid transit or perhaps some form of rail, expansion of the rail system. A lot of the comments noted the importance of the transit system to serving underserved communities and providing access to jobs and other essential services. A couple of folks recommended the idea of, you know, maybe combining all the transit systems under one entity to serve the region. We received a letter from an advocacy group called Central Floridians for Public Transit. They submitted quite a lengthy letter really urging more funding for transit and several suggestions that they had for how they thought transit could be improved in the region. So that's at comment number 38 if you would like to read that letter. But then one of the other major topics was funding, of course, and that really goes hand in hand with the transit piece. Most of the funding comments that we received had to do with the need to address those unfunded transit needs, to find a dedicated funding source. Some of the other funding comments that we received focused more on the bicycle and pedestrian area, wanting to see more investment in those types of projects to improve not only safety, but connectivity on the system. We even had a couple comments offered on models to replace the gas tax. So that was interesting that folks are really thinking about that long-term solution. Most of the comments that we did receive fell into the general area because there were so many different topics that were addressed, but we had several specific geographic areas that folks pointed out the need. So they said, you know, I want to see more transportation solutions in East Orange County, out near Avalon, Rosemont, Poinciana, Four Corners area. So we did have a few folks that were advocating for their areas. We even had several people write in with thanks and compliments for our staff and planning efforts. So we really appreciated them taking the time to do that. Corinne Drive was another big area where we received several comments. As you all remember, we conducted a complete street study on Corinne Drive that wrapped up last year with a recommended design for that area. And so we are continuing to work on fully funding that project, and it is fully funded in this long range plan. So the residents were really just, they've stayed in touch with us since the study, and they were advocating for getting that project done. They're really interested in seeing it built as soon as possible. Bicycle and pedestrian was another really popular area for commentary. A lot of the issues focused on safety, which is no surprise. We did receive a letter from Bike Walk Central Florida, which you all probably know that this is the group that oversees and runs the Best Foot Forward for Pedestrian Safety program. So we do help fund them, but they were really interested in seeing things move in a more multimodal direction. They encouraged more spending on bicycle and pedestrian projects, and is something that we're trying to do in this plan. You know, where we can flex funds to multimodal needs, we're certainly doing that. The Florida Trail Association also submitted a letter. They were interested in seeing the Florida National Scenic Trail included in our maps and planning efforts. So we're going to work with them to see how we can better reflect that in future work. And one of their other projects that they are advocating for as well is a land bridge across 528 from Deseret Ranch into the Housecott Preserve, so hikers can cross over. So that they had asked that to be included as well. On the technology side, you can't look at a long-range plan without talking about technology. So we did have some comments come in on that. We had a few folks from the city of Orlando staffers that are working on their future ready plan that encouraged us to look at some additional types of technology. And then we had a couple of environmental comments, one from the Florida Forest Service that confirmed for us that there's no big impact to the 2 state forests, which we knew, but it was nice to have the confirmation and involvement from them and the interest. So that is kind of an overview of the comments that we received in the record. If you have any questions on public participation, I'm happy to take those now if you'd like. But if you don't, then I will hand it off to Alex, and he's going to talk about some of the agency comments that we received and some of the updates that were made to the plan. Madam
Great.
Chairwoman, sorry, sorry, Alex, I see a couple hands up. I'll wait on Chairwoman.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the participants list. Theo Webster, you are recognized for your comment. Does someone on staff mind unmuting Theo?
Oh,
I got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
In looking through the comments, particularly the letter from Central Floridians for Transit, one of their comments or questions had to do with the possibility of moving some funding from road widening projects to transit projects, and perhaps someone could just address that.
Some of the things that they wrote about in their letter that they would like to see are things that are out of our control, such as you just mentioned, right? There are a lot of sources of federal funding that have certain requirements and strings attached to them, and we can't change that at our level, at the metropolitan planning level. So those types of changes would need to come from the federal level with the way that those sorts of funds are dealt with. Now, of course, there are other types of funds that don't have those types of strings attached. So for example, if a local government wanted to enact a source of funding that would go to transit, that would be eligible to go to transit, they could certainly do that, and they would have control over how that is spent. So does that address your question, Alex? I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Okay.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I would add, and just to kind of piggyback on Cynthia's comment, is, where, we have flexibility in the urbanized area funds, we really have flex that. I'll talk about that more in a second. But some of the comments and concerns that were noted in that letter are just not feasible based on federal and state law. So, within the constraints of federal guidelines for us preparing a metropolitan transportation plan, we really have kind of raised the bar for how we're spending funds. I've said this in previous presentations. We used to only have a highway and a transit list, and that was the extent of a long-range plan. We are accounting for every dollar of our transportation system within this plan, and it funds a full range of projects, transit projects, bicycle complete streets projects, as well as roadway projects. So I understand the concern, the need for more transit funding, but within the constraints of our planning realm, this is kind of where we're at. But to Cynthia's point, really quick, it just goes back to, there are flexible funds that are statutorily available to our local governments, which could be enacted by commission and or referendum, which would provide great relief to our transit system's funding challenges.
Thank you.
Sorry, Theo, I was looking. Anyways, Theo, to your point, I'm gonna, as part of my board member comments to the MetroPlan Orlando board, I will be raising that. And as Cynthia and Alex have pointed out, federal funds do have strings attached, and those are just the rules regarding those federal funds. But with our elected officials at the board, I think it is a really good point to bring up that, you know, that as that letter points out, there is some political courage that it's required to fund more transit projects. Mr. Peters, you are now recognized for your comment.
Yes, Cynthia, was there a clear differentiation on the transit preferences for BRTs versus rail?
That is a great question. I would say it was a mix. On the folks that commented about the bus rapid transit projects, it seemed to be because they had prior knowledge of the studies that have been done in that area. So in other words, they didn't want to see past studies just kind of sit on the shelf. They wanted to see those actually put into operation. I don't know that bus rapid transit automatically pops into most what I would call normal people's minds in the community as a solution. So there was you know, a lot of mention of rail as well and expanding that. So I think it's a mix.
And Cynthia, if I could add to that, Mr. Peters, there was a big push for frequency. You know, that's the term that we heard a lot, more frequency to more places. You know, as a planner, what does that mean? More frequency kind of takes you into that form of transit operations, you know, bus rapid transit, shorter stop distances, you know, greater frequency between those. But yeah, the terminology, no, but in kind of layman terms, what we're hearing is more, you know, faster transit, more frequent transit to more places.
Yeah, which translates into convenience, I think, speaks to the convenience factor.
All right, Mr. O'Hanlon, you are now recognized for your comment.
I have a lot of comments. I don't even know where to start. And it certainly has to do with predominantly funding. I think I'm going to start with what's going on in technology space. I am probably 2 weeks from getting full self-driving for my car. I was not an early adopter because I have too much fun with my car and I have test drives and let too many people drive the car for Elon to let me have the earliest versions of full self-driving. It is now on version 5, came out yesterday. I've watched the most recent YouTube videos of it. It is almost a perfect driving system. I should have that version in 2 weeks. Elon is putting together the world's most powerful supercomputer that almost beyond description to further enhance the full self-driving to the point that it jumps basically from level 4 to level 5. Without a doubt, this is happening next year. The vision that people have for the future is so far off of what's going to happen. I don't even know where to start. I will tell you that I've had many people drive my car, and it's such a shame for this COVID thing that I can't come down there and some of you guys drive it yourselves and see what the future holds for you. It's not even the future. It's here today. Sorry, I used the word future. It's here today. Okay. They get out of the car and they were like Eric was the first time he drove the car 2.5 years ago. He just stands there and he's stunned. Well, everybody sees this car today is the same way. They get out and they just look at it and say, I had no idea that the Jetsons is already here. So where do I go with that? Where I go with that is I would never spend another dime on rail. I wouldn't spend a dime on BRT. because long before those things are ever built, they're beyond obsolete. Yes, this technology right now is more expensive than some of the other items. That's for a short period of time. Elon's building 4 or 5 battery factories up on the planet, and you've got others building about another 5 battery factories also. And these are massive battery factories that will reduce the cost to the point that gas cars will no longer be viable because no one will spend that kind of money because electric's going to be cheaper. That means that, you know, and I don't know who's working on the electric passenger self-driving bus. I'm sure there's multiple people working on that. Elon probably has those type of vehicles in design that we're unaware of for his boring company that are all going to be driving around underground in tunnels. But as soon as those are finished, I am sure he will work on those that'll work on the surface. That is the future. And I will tell you, I'm against spending any money on almost anything that doesn't support that future that's going to be here next year, the year after. And by the year after that, electric cars are cheaper than gas. You know, the UK thinks, everybody thinks UK went out on a line saying you can't buy a gas car after 2030. Well, by the time we're in the second half, say 25, 28, no one's going to want to buy a gas car. This is, and you've heard me year after year after year that this is coming. Well, it's coming like a steamroller right now. And I would love for Central Florida to be ahead of everybody else because we didn't spend our money on some of these dinosaur technologies. And then, you know, the question about frequency, well, the frequency of buses is going to be much greater because the cost of them is going to be 1/10 what it is to drive a diesel vehicle. My car's first maintenance is 6 years from today. A normal car has 4,000 moving parts. There's only 20 moving parts on my car, and it'll go 1,000,000 miles. And I know we spent a lot of time with all of this planning until basically the full self-driving came out. It's on version 5. Basically, it gets almost an update a week. That's how fast it's coming along right now. I had no idea that this would come out even quicker than I even thought it would come out. And you guys always thought I was way far into the future, but the future is already here. It's no longer the future. It's today. Very frustrating because I realize everybody I even show my car to says, I had no idea that this exists and you can just, well, you can't really just go buy one. You got to wait forever to get a car because everybody wants them. But it's coming. 500,000 electric cars this year. Elon's doing 1,000,000 electric cars next year, 2 million the year after. And then after that, everybody starts kicking in. There's going to be 5, 10, 20 million cars a year is produced.
Technologies. Oh,
food for
Go
thought.
ahead. Sorry, Cynthia.
No, I was just going to mention that technology does change so quickly, and no doubt that's why we update this long range plan regularly. The next time we update this long range plan, there's going to be technology out there on the road that we haven't even thought of today. So that's the importance of the continuous nature of the planning process, definitely.
I understand that. The problem is we're going to publish a plan that's already way out of date, because it's already happened. That's my concern. So we're talking about spending money on bus and rail. Unless it's an electric self-driving bus, we should spend no money on it whatsoever because we're just wasting our money. I'd rather be ahead of the other cities than behind them. Anyway,
those technology tests are underway. Lynx already has their first electric bus out there on the road testing to see how it performs. So I think we're definitely moving in that direction.
And hopefully we get our update on our autonomous buses for Orlando today.
Before we move on, Mr. Hanlon, do you have any additional comments on Cynthia's public comment section of this MTP review?
The only comment that I'd like to make, because I experience this almost every week, people will drive in my car and they're dumbfounded. We can't, I mean, which basically means you got 99% of the public is dumbfounded. They have no idea this exists today. And somehow, you know, we as an organization need to move on information that actually exists that no one is aware of. I don't know where to go with that, but I live it every day.
Okay. All right, so we still have a second part of this MTP review. Mr. Alex Traeger is going to talk about the cost feasible plan. Alex, you can take it whenever you're ready.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the last time we were together, I presented in detail, covered all of the topics, but today I'm really just going to briefly talk about, what has changed since the last meeting. And to be honest, not too much, but I'm going to cover some of those issues today. So we can go to the next slide, please. So what has changed? And it's really kind of encapsulated in these 5 bullet points. The first is project limits. As part of our agency review process, we fine-tune those limits. So in some cases we were off by a quarter mile or so. So that's kind of where we were at, and that was part of our agency review. So all of our local government partners had an opportunity to review these projects, in their respective jurisdictions, and to provide us that feedback. So we were able to update our projects limits, what we call logical termini, to make sure we're stopping in the appropriate place. So that affected lengths in some cases, quarter mile, half mile in some cases, but that was reflected in our documentation. We also removed like duplicate or overlapping projects. There are a handful of those throughout the 400 or 500 projects that we had in there, but we deleted those out because they were already accounted for in a previous priority. That was because we pulled projects and needs from a lot of different means this time. Traditionally, like I said, we use travel demand models. This time we kind of forwent that option and kind of pieced together or pulled together needs from a variety of sources. And one of the issues was that overlapping. So we addressed that and we rectified that in the cost feasible plan. No impacts to cost feasible projects. We just deleted those secondary or overlapping segments. We revised some project descriptions. Like I said, only a handful. A lot of these were projects really on the local, for our local lists, tables 15, 16, 17, of those. And that's where we had previous widening projects, but based on local comprehensive plans, you're not allowed to widen to a certain number of lanes. So those project descriptions were updated for complete streets, which provides more of an emphasis on bicycle and pedestrian traffic, less about moving cars. Toll and local revenue projections. So we received an update from Florida's Turnpike Enterprise as well as CFX on projects that are going to be in their master plan or work program. So those were corrected, and I think I presented on this a little bit last month. We also added additional revenues for Orange County. We misinterpreted, how they're using funds in their capital improvement program, but we have rectified that, and now our local funds, do account for how Orange County currently spends their existing funding sources. Based on those previous 4 edits or updates, we've revised our documentation accordingly, and all of that information is now available on our website, found at the links in tab 3 of your agenda packets. We can go to the next slide, please. Similar last month, though, we're looking at almost a $28 billion plan, almost 50-50 as we look toll to federal, state, and local sources. Again, I'm going to focus the rest of the next couple minutes here really just on the federal, state, and local piece, which we can talk about in the next slide, please. So again, 13.19, almost 13.2 million. If we go to the next slide, please. So this shows kind of that federal, state, and local breakdown, how we're spending funds. Obviously, we have those I-4 projects, the interstate highway system projects. State roads, another big category. As I mentioned last time, that project category includes complete streets projects, shared use paths, technology projects on the state highway system. That's a critical element and eligibility requirement for those funds, is those funds have to be spent on the national or state highway system. We also have identified an off-system winding program. This is going to assist our local government partners in solving some of their congestion challenges off the state highway system. So we're dedicating almost $300 million to that program. We'll talk about that more in a second. TSMO, Systems Management Operations, Complete Streets, and Bicycle pedestrian and trails. These do show small percentages, but I think what's notable here, kind of going back to the discussion about funding eligibility and flexing funds, that TSMO is 1%, of all of our federal, state, local funds. But as it relates to the funds that our board controls, that 1% is actually 21% of our urbanized area funds. So again, when you kind of add it all up, it kind of, almost misleading. But as we look at the funds that we can flex, that's actually 21% of our urbanized area funds for systems management operations. Complete streets, similarly, our board spends 32% of our urbanized area funds on complete streets projects off the state highway system. Bike, ped, and trails, they spend 17%. So again, this 1% is of those total funds, which kind of gets misconstrued based on the national highway, local, and state road projects. But again, bike, ped, and trails, 17%. As I mentioned, some of those state highway projects also do include, as well as our local projects, do also include both technology systems management, complete streets, and those bicycle and pedestrian projects. So, this chart may be a little bit misleading, but it's organized based on how the funds flow and how they're dedicated in our priority lists. As you can see, our 19% of all funds, federal, state, local, for transit, but that's using our board's policy for 30% of our urbanized area funds for transit. And we're also dedicating up to 30% of our district dedicated revenue in years 26 through 45, which amounts to about $90 million for premium transit service. So that's going to be there to support our local partners as they advance premium services in the region. We can go to the next slide, please. And these are our funding programs. I spoke a little bit about this last time, and this is very different for our long range plan. Something we're really excited about is kind of providing that planning continuity across all of our products. We're dedicating $20 million. It's $2 million a year for signal retiming. We're going to continue that program through the life of our plan, as well as dedicating $250,000 a year for demonstration projects. So we're going to be looking at autonomous connected electric vehicle, shared vehicle demonstration projects to help our local governments explore those options and make them viable. So, Central Florida, to Mr. Hanlon's point, can be a test bed for this high technology. Active transportation, another key element. School mobility, $2 million a year. So this is us supplementing FDOT's Safe Routes to School program to provide sidewalk and other safe access connections for elementary and other public schools. We've also dedicated $2 million a year for critical sidewalk gaps. That's coming out of our bike ped funds. But that's going to really, those. Let me take a step back here. Signal retiming, the demonstration projects, school mobility, and critical sidewalk gaps are going to be managed annually by our technical advisory committee and our systems management advisory committee. Those are going to be more short-term programs. So within this plan, we're identifying the funds, kind of blocking those funds, but we're going to be working with our technical committees early next year to start kind of shaping up those programs. As our community advisory committee, you'll also be part of that process as we go through that. As we support our local governments, we're going to continue our special studies, $2 million a year over the life of the plan. And this helps our smaller municipalities address some of their access, mobility, and congestion concerns. We have a couple great experiences that we've done over the past few years in Oakland and Belle Isle and some other places. We want to continue that, kind of level the playing field for our planning partners. Like I said on the previous slide, almost $300 million, 10% of our other arterial funds will be going to local road widening. Those funds would typically go to the national highway system, but we're flexing those funds to support our local government partners and again, addressing some of their congestion challenges. And finally, as I said before, we're following through with our board's policy for using up to 30% of our district dedicated revenue. Those are state funds that would typically go to the state highway system. Our board is spending $90 million over the life of the plan. So that's through years 36 through 45 of the plan. We don't have anything kind of near term that we're going to be able to spend those funds. So we're going to start that program in the latter years of the plan. So these are important funding programs as part of our process. Again, we've never done this before as part of a long range plan, but we believe it's really important to kind of frame out these programs. So as we move forward in our short-term planning products, our prioritized project list, and our transportation improvement program, everything has to be rooted in the long range plan to be consistent with those shorter term documents. So again, this is about planning consistency and continuity. We can go to the next slide, please. Kathy, will you advance to the next slide, please? Great. So, previously we've been reviewing these projects in kind of tabular form. I apologize with that. We did a major GIS kind of overhaul over the past few weeks, and we've uploaded all of our needs, all of these cost feasible projects to our data viewer. So this is a interactive map that you can go to. The top two tabs on the right hand, if you go to the link at the bottom there, and you look at those top two tabs, you'll see cost feasible projects and multimodal needs. So you can view those spatially on a map, see what's happening around you, zoom in, zoom out. It's color coded by legend, so you'll be able to explore and view that throughout the region. A lot of investment, across the region, but we went through a performance and kind of outcome-driven process this time around. So that's what you'll see in that map. We can go to the next slide, please, which I believe is my last slide. And this is where I really, want to kind of final comments. What do you think? How can we improve it next time? We, as Cynthia mentioned, we do update this plan every 4 to 5 years based on federal guidelines to kind of account for things that change, things that evolve. With that, this is where I'd normally ask you for your recommendation for approval, but because of our workshop format today, we really just want to understand, do we have consensus? What are your thoughts? How do you want our Sarah, our chairwoman, to kind of convey the message from this committee to our board, at their meeting next week? So with that, I'll open it up for discussion, opinions, but I can also field any questions that you may have.
All right, committee members, if you have any comments, please use the raise hands feature. All right, Mr. O'Hanlon, you are recognized for your comments.
Alex, appreciate all the work that you've put into this. I think it's very unfortunate that the carpet's basically been pulled out from under you during the whole process, and it's really only happening here in the past few weeks. But I don't want anybody to be surprised. I have explained that I will not be voting for this. I do not support putting dollars into dinosaur technologies. I understand why everybody's going to do this, because 99% of our society has no idea that everything has changed. But when they do figure that out, then, I guess as a group, we can all make that decision, but it's already happened. So don't be offended when I vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you,
None
Mr.
taken.
Any other member discussion? All right, this is technically our last item for discussion today. So I'm going to one more round. Anybody want to raise their hands on this? All right, so this actually concludes our items for review and discussion. We do not have any presentations today. That is not, MetroPlan staff worked really hard to try and find bring presenters to us today. The schedule just didn't work out. This is actually the case for all of the committees at MetroPlan. There are some items for general information in tab 6 of your agenda packets. Our next CAC meeting will be January 27th. This will be a planned virtual workshop like today, so quorum will not be required, but I do encourage participation as these items will be brought back up for vote. If this changes, MetroPlan staff will be reaching out to us. CAC meetings for the remainder of 2021 are included in your agenda. And the next MetroPlan Orlando board meeting will be December 9th, and it will be a hybrid meeting with some board members and staff and members of the public attending in person. Other board members, staff, and members of the public will also be attending virtually. That meeting, like all MetroPlan meetings, will be open for your participation. I will be bringing our comments from today to that board meeting, especially about the MTP. At this time, we always invite committee members to make final comments. Before we get started with our usual members, I'm going to recognize some of our new members, Mr. Davis and Mr. Longville, if they would like to speak. Is Mr. Davis on the line?
He has joined us, Madam Chairwoman. He is with us. I do not see either his microphone or his camera on. So, Mr. Davis, if you want to come on, we'd love to hear from you. He may have
We're-
stepped away.
Okay, Mr. Longville, I do see you. If you would like to unmute yourself and if you'd like to share any member comments from today.
Sure, thank you. Really just trying to kind of learn and get involved, kind of get up to speed. My name's Kyle Longville. I'm an Oviedo resident, lifelong Central Florida resident. Yeah, like I said, just kind of trying to get involved. You know, my background is in, I have an undergraduate degree in civil engineering, so I've always been interested in transit, planes, trains, automobiles, that type of thing. And just, yeah, looking forward to learning about the process and giving some time here. So that's really it for me.
Awesome. Actually, Mr. Longville, did you go to the University of Florida?
I did, Sarah. I think we have I think we might have crossed paths up there.
So, well, it's nice to see you and welcome. You're not the only civil engineer on the board. I've been on this board, I would say, I think 3 to 4 years at this point. And it did take a little bit of time to get used to how things work, but thank you so much for joining us and we look forward to your future participation.
Thank you.
Of course. Are there, before we go on to other member comments, I want to make sure that previous member comments were recognized. Mr. Pigram had a comment previously about the rail corridor, the rail envelope that was preserved by FDOT and has since been value engineered since. Mr. Pigram, if you would like to repose your question, and then we have Rakinya from FDOT on the line as well to provide their comments. Mr. Pigram?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. So the question that was proposed previously was to get an understanding of the current I-4 Ultimate project and the changes from the original intent to preserve in certain parts of the corridor a 22-foot, whether it's light rail or transit, but a 22-foot corridor for future development that I believe in certain areas was valued engineered down to 8 feet and appears that in some corridors has been completely eliminated. So I wanted to get an idea of the public participation process in that decision making that potential multimodal corridors have been potentially removed, which may be in conflict with this 2045 vision.
I believe Rakinya from FDOT is on.
Hey, I'm on. Good morning. I was trying to unmute myself. Sorry about that.
No worries.
But good morning again. As it stands right now, Mr. Pigram is correct about the rail corridor. It's only for the I-4 beyond the ultimate area, which is Kirkman out to Champions Gate. The PD&E was done in that area for the rail corridor back in 2005. And of course, there's been significant changes since then. The department is currently evaluating that portion for the PD&E studying and working with the stakeholders and to evaluate the impacts, both the pros and the cons for the entire picture to benefit or not benefit the removal of the rail corridor. All of those excuse me, evaluations are very, very preliminary at this time. Until we can get a big picture estimate of the entire area, there's no decision about how they're going to be able to move forward. So when the time is appropriate, there will be discussion and the stakeholders and public will be made aware for those comments. But at this time, it's very preliminary in the stage of how they're going to be able to move forward with the rail corridor for that area.
So sorry, just for clarification, thank you for the insight into the beyond the ultimate scope. I guess what I was referring to is the current project that is in construction, and the immediate example I give is in the Millennia area where there is a new turnpike ramp to the I-4 express lanes going in, seems to be in conflict with the corridor that was to be preserved in the current project limits.
Well, as
so that's what I was trying to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so that's sorry. Just wondering about the current project that is in construction that was supposed to have an 8-foot corridor from that John Young to Kirkman area?
I will have to go back and get some further information. As far as I understood, the rail corridor was preserved for the I-4 BTU beyond the ultimate, and I wasn't aware of any circumstances for the rail corridor in the I-4 construction area, the current construction area. The only area that was addressed was beyond the ultimate. So I will have to find out specific information to see what I can bring back to the group.
Virginia, thank you for that response. I do want to push back a little bit and just make sure that we do get information about the current I-4 ultimate changes and how those decisions were made in terms of changing the rail corridor, the preservation of that rail envelope.
Absolutely. Like I said, as far as I've been notified, the only rail corridor that had preservation was beyond the ultimate, but I will go back to the to our work program group and a construction group and find out that information for you specifically.
Awesome. We look forward to it for our January 27th meeting. And thank you for always joining us.
You're very welcome.
So we're going to move on to any other member comments. If you'd like to raise your hand, we'll recognize you if you want to add any final words before we close out.
Madam Chairwoman, we have several hands, including Mr. Davis, who now has his hand up to speak. So
wonderful. So we're going to start with Mr. Mueller and then just work our way down.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I just want to add a little strength to what Tom was saying earlier. You know, if you've been watching the electric vehicle progress, there's many companies jumping into this arena now. We have several China companies that are coming up really fast, and a couple more that are going to give Tesla a run for their money. So sorry, Tom, you're going to have to take a back seat to some of these other companies, I think, because they're being very competitive in that market. And not only that, but there's clean hydrogen fuel cell trucks coming. So, you know, I have to agree with what Tom is saying. The future is here, and it's rapidly coming on very, very quickly. And I think within 2 to 3 years, you're going to see many more electric vehicles on the road, as well as trucks that are going to be fueled by hydrogen fuel cells. So, you know, I'd like to just encourage us to take a deeper look at that and make sure that we're really taking into account that, because it's going to dramatically affect oil and gas prices and the money coming in from that revenue. And also on that side of it, the oil companies themselves are in trouble, and they're looking at ways to go more clean and actually investing more into clean air and electric and that type of thing. So Tom, you make a really good point, and I just want to give you a little more credence to what you were saying. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. I think those are really good points. Just another thing to bring up is, I know we deal a lot with ground transportation, but Lake Nona just landed the first electric vertical takeoff and landing company in the United States. So as we talk about how technology is changing very quickly, some of our regional trips might be changing as well. Again, this MTP is reviewed every 4 to 5 years. So just another point to consider. Following Mr. Mueller, Mr. Pigram, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, please. So appreciate all the discussion and recognition about technology and where we're headed and how that's going to impact both ownership of vehicles and density and use of our corridors as those become more automated, especially if people no longer decide to own vehicles, but rent transportation to get to and from a location. But something that I think we all need to keep in mind is the economic disparity associated with that technology, that even if I were to take an UberX from Point Siena to my job at Advent Health near Winter Park, middle of the day, it would cost me 82 cents per mile, versus if I can take my Sunrail annual pass, it costs me 4 cents per mile. So just something we need to be cognizant of in terms of the economics of that technology and where it's at, that to equate the cost for an individual, those costs per mile would have to drop 95%. And there is an eventuality where we may get to that point, but I don't know necessarily that we can say we need to change what we're doing in the next 5 years, because those costs are going to come down 95% in the next 5 years. So just something that I ask that we all keep in mind is technology is great, but it's not necessarily accessible or affordable to everyone. And I think we need to keep that in mind as part of our planning.
I saw a lot of heads nodding in that. Thank you, Mr. Pigram, for that very poignant comment. Mr. O'Hanlon, your hand is also raised. Do you have any additional comments today?
Yes, I'd like to address a bunch of things that were said. And we'll just start off with the equity item. That's what's so phenomenal and so fantastic about autonomous electric vehicles. We have something that's going to make equity absolutely everywhere, available to everyone. And yes, in 5 years, believe it or not, we'll probably be down 95%. So I realize that everybody's thinking about what's out there today and really has no idea of actually what really is out here today. This is happening whether we all like it or we don't. And just like RJ's talking about, you know, you got Yaoping, you got NIO, you got so many others who are also going to produce these cars. It's not only Tesla. And the other thing is, believe it or not, this also solves global warming, because 49% of oil is used for cars and trucks. And that's about to become zero. And, you know, in getting to the rail issue, you know, Mike at the office there told me one day, and it's true, you just get 3 trucks platooning together. The cost of shipping goods is less than rail. Rail is a complete dinosaur on every aspect. I don't want to spend another penny on rail. No one is going to use it. They're going to go out of business faster than you can imagine. The only thing they're going to be there for is if you've got something that weighs more than 80,000 pounds and you have to move it, when you can't move it on the road. Otherwise, everything is going to go into autonomous trucks. Anyway, I didn't want to get into that issue. I really wanted to discuss, I had requested, and we were supposed to be watching autonomous buses drive around downtown Orlando. I have not seen those buses there, so I'm guessing that not only do we not have a presentation about it, but they're behind schedule. How far behind schedule, I don't know. So I would like to change my request to have the presentation about what happened to the buses that we obviously didn't get. Why didn't we get them? And how far behind schedule are they? I want Orlando to be ahead of everybody else. And at the rate we're going, we're not doing it. Florida, though, is amazing. I'm not sure if it was Wall Street Journal or who mentioned this. We're one of the very few states, or maybe it was Tesla mentioned it, where as soon as these cars are FSD, you can just let the cars drive. So we made some good decisions to try and get things here. So, you know, that is definitely helping us here. But we need to do more. I don't know. Thanks. And Joel, hello. Good to hear from you.
Good to see you, Tom.
All right, Tom, if that concludes your remarks, we'll actually move on to Mr. Davis for his remarks.
Sorry about not being able to log in a minute ago. I got some technology challenged at that point. I just wanted to take a moment to tell everybody how pleased I am to be back on the committee, and just look forward to hopefully getting back to in-person meetings and seeing a lot of the friends of mine from years ago that are still here.
All right, welcome back, Mr. Davis, and thank you for rejoining the MetroPlan CAC. Mr. Mueller, did you re-raise your hand? Do you have additional final comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's also another point that I'd like to make about all this, and I agree with Mr. Pigram that this is not going to be tomorrow, but it is coming, and you know, I think it's faster than we actually think, and you know, this whole COVID thing forced tons of people into work from home, and I'm one of them, and I don't think, to tell you the truth, I'm ever going back to the office. I mean, I think that the norm, a new norm has been set, and many of us out there are just in the Zoom meeting thing, and we're not going to go back to the office. I'm a computer programmer, and I can do everything more efficiently from where I work, and this is millions of people, I think. And the effect of that has been that many people are abandoning the urban, the urban office locations, and they're moving out into the suburbs, which is causing, you know, more people to buy more cars. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been watching used car prices, but they've been skyrocketing, as well as new prices. So, you know, you would think, well, people aren't driving cars, but people are buying cars because they're moving out of these urban settings and into suburbs, and they're working more from home. So, you know, we really have to look at all of this and see the big picture of what's happening to our society as a whole, and not just thinking that we're going back to work someday, because I don't think we're going back to work someday. I think we're going to work from where we're at, which is at home. And like I said, I don't think I'm ever going back to the office. I think this is my new workplace. So I just wanted to make sure that point was stressed, and we think about that as we move forward. So thank you.
Agreed. I definitely think this pandemic is going to have a lot of impacts on real estate, land use, transportation, technology. So thank you, Mr. Mueller, for those comments. And then Rakinya, I see that your hand is raised. I don't know if you have any additional information for us.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I don't have additional information to the previous comments, but I just wanted to add some unrelated additional comments. The first being, as a reminder, for the Florida Department of Transportation's work program public hearing has been rescheduled for January 11th through the 15th, with the department hosting an in-person meeting on the evening of January 14th. As soon as we have more details that are developed, we'll be sure to share those with the committees, the board, and also the TPO staff. Excuse me, we anticipate presenting our work program presentation during the February-March round of meetings. We'll be working with staff very soon to make sure we get that scheduled. Another item is that we have currently started a new construction report. You should see those changes. When I say new, the formatting is new in an effort to make it easier to understand and be able to follow at first glance, kind of an at-a-glance construction report. So you should look for those changes in the next round of reports that go out. And the last being just to recognize that the department has received their allocation for fiscal year funding, and we are working with the MPO staff to make sure that we make that as transparent as possible, and to be able to collaborate with them and to keep as many of those priority projects moving along as much as we possibly can. So I didn't have anything in regards to the previous comment, but I just wanted to make those 3 items.
Thank you, Rakinya. And then seeing no additional hands raised, I do have just one thing to share, is that the Orlando Economic Partnership is actually hosting an event right now through their Alliance for Regional Transportation, focused on what's the future for Brightline. Their keynote speaker is the CEO of Brightline. They've announced some new partnerships and the connection to Disney World. So if you're interested in that, I might ask Marianne to send out the stream of that later once it is recorded and available. Seeing no additional hands raised, we're going to move on to our second portion of public comments. If any members of the public wish to comment, please use the raise hands function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your keypad. We'll unmute your microphone and you will be recognized. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
I have one comment. On the
Yes,
attendee
Madam
side.
Chairwoman, we do have a comment on the attendee side. Mr. Puhek.
I believe Mr. Puhek might be muted.
We have tried to unmute him. He should be able to speak now. Oh.
Looks like he disappeared off of my list, but Mr. Puhek, if you are on the line and available, please share your comments. Might he be muted on the phone? *9.
Okay, I muted it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, my question has to do with the electric technologies. I've read some articles about where we're going there, and I'm a little bit concerned in 2 areas. I see the viability in the cars. I'm not sure about trucks and buses because of the weight and the amount of batteries. I'm also concerned about long-term costs of batteries due to the rare minerals that go into making them. So that's a concern I have. The other one is I hear that hydrogen probably is going to be the more viable option for the trucks and buses in the long-term future. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Puhek. Are we saying your last name right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Puhek.
All right, Puhek. Mr. Puhek, I don't know if we have any MetroPlan Orlando staff that would like to address that, but I do see Mr. O'Hanlon's hand raised. Mr. O'Hanlon, we're getting to the end of our time, but if you would like to briefly address that, you are recognized.
Thank you. Yes. Tesla has the technology for the tractor trailer trucks, which will have, and as amazing as this sounds, no weight penalty compared to a diesel truck, let alone hydrogen. So you will be able to not only go 600 miles with a tractor trailer truck with the batteries, it will also climb the hills and mountains far faster than any diesel truck can. So not only will it go basically as far, it will actually get there quicker with no weight penalty. Now, grant you, that truck is probably 3 years out. Elon's only going to start manufacturing those trucks early in 2022. But I'm sorry to say, they're coming. They're coming. They're coming far cheaper, less cost per mile, no pollution. I will grant you, you'll have megawatt chargers all over that charge the trucks at 1,000,000 watts at a time. Like, you know, put 5 subdivisions together and suck all of that power down into one truck. But, you know, they'll have to address that with the grid, but, you know, it's coming. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. O'Hanlon. Mr. Puhek, did that address your question? Sorry, I'm still looking for. Okay. All right, we have one more member whose hand is raised. Ms. Mott, you are recognized.
Yes, sorry about that. My hand was raised quite a while on the member comment section, so I
apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just would like to extend my appreciation to both Cynthia and Alex. They did an extraordinary job on putting that stuff together. I know a lot of time and a lot of energy was put into that. And in addition to just what some of the issues that were raised by Mr. O'Hanlon, he raises good points, and I understand where he's coming from with a lot of the things the issues that he's pointed out. And I support some of them and agree with him on some of those, but those were great things. But also I'd like to note also that what Mr. Pigram mentioned in reference to the financial aspect of it, I really would like to make sure we keep a focus on that because, you know, in spite of the fact that some of us are able to work from home, like Mr. Mueller mentioned, everybody can't as well. So we have to parallel that same aspect of it on that side as well. So everyone can't do that. So of course, I'd like for Metro Orlando to be mindful of that as well as we move forward with this stuff. But in short, again, just appreciation to the team for putting this together, the staff and all the hard work that they put in for presenting this to us. So I appreciate that. That concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mott. And that actually concludes our member comments, our public comments. And at this time, if there is no further business, we actually stand adjourned. Thank you all for such a vigorous conversation today, and see you January 27th for our next workshop. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Great meeting. Stay safe, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Same here.
Everybody.
Bye.